In this video, we're going to be discussing the relationships between the solutions, zeros, x-intercepts, and factors of quadratic equations. So, the solution, zeros, x-intercept, and factors are all connected. In fact, the words solutions, zeros, and roots, those are all different names for the exact same thing. So an equation that has solutions, or zeros, or roots of a and b is going to have factors of x minus a and x minus b. So notice that the way these are related is it's just x minus whatever the solution is. That same equation is going to have x-intercepts of a0 and b0. So a and b are the x coordinates of our x-intercepts, and the y coordinates are just 0. So if I look at this example here, if I have this equation, x squared minus 3x minus 18, and I wanted to find these things, well, the first thing I could do is I could factor this and realize that this has factors of x minus 6 and x plus 3. So if I factored this equation, my factored version would be x minus 6 times x plus 3. So that's those are my factors. From there I can find my roots. So my roots are just the x, are what's being subtracted. So in here, it's x minus 6, so that's 6. This is x plus 3. And I can think of x plus 3 as x minus negative 3. So my two roots are 6 and negative 3. So then my x-intercepts is I just make them the ordered pairs, 6, 0, and negative 3, 0. So that's how these things are related. So let's work out some examples for how to do this sort of thing. So number one, we want to find the factors, x-intercepts, and solutions of this equation. So my first step, I got to factor this thing. So to factor it, I've got 3x squared minus 10x plus 3. They don't have a greatest common factor, so I can go to my factoring tool. 3 times 3 is 9. Then down here I've got negative 10. So I need two numbers that multiply to 9, add to negative 10. Those are going to be negative 9 and negative 1. So I can go back over here and rewrite this as 3x squared minus 9x minus 1x plus 3. So if I look at the first two, the greatest common factor of 3x squared and negative 9x is 3x. And I'm left inside 3x squared divided by 3x is x, and negative 9x divided by 3x is minus 3. Negative 1x and 3, I can factor out, all they share is a 1, and I got to take the sign of that front number, so minus 1. Negative 1x divided by negative 1 is just x, and 3 divided by negative 1 is minus 3. So this factors out to give me x minus 3, that's what's inside my parentheses, and outside my parentheses, 3x minus 1. So the factors of this equation end up being 3x minus 1 and x minus 3. So then our zeros are just going to be, if I work this out, okay, it's going to be, this one gets me 3, and then the 1/3 comes from this. If I take 3x minus 1 and I set it equal to 0, then I can go, all right, plus 1, 3x equals 1, divide by 3, divide by 3, x equals 1/3. So when I've got my factors to find my zeros, I literally just set each one of these equal to 0, and solve, and that will give me my zeros. Now once I have my zeros, to find my x-intercepts, all I have to do is put my zeros into an ordered pair with a y value of 0. So this shows us how from an equation I could come up with my factors, x-intercepts, and my zeros, roots, solutions. For example 2, we're given a graph. So if we look at our graph, okay, what we want to do is we first need to figure out what of these things can I come up with from my graph. Well, I can come up with my x-intercepts. They're right here, and right here. So this x-intercept is at negative 5, 0. Come up. Okay, this x-intercept is at negative 5, 0, and this x-intercept is at 2, 0. Now knowing that, that means that my roots are simply negative 5 and 2. To turn those into factors, all I do is I go, okay, x minus negative 5 and x minus 2. X minus negative 5 is x plus 5, and then x minus 2 is already there. So my factors are x plus 5 and x minus 2. Now to write my equation, what I need to do is I need to take my factors, x plus 5 and x minus 2, and I need to multiply these out. So if you remember to do this, we just distribute twice. X times x, x squared. X times negative 2 minus 2x. 5 times x plus 5x. 5 times negative 2 minus 10. Combine my like terms, I get x squared plus 3x minus 10. And I need to put my y equals at the front of that. So my equation is y equals x squared plus 3x minus 10. So I just put my factors together, multiply them out, and then combine like terms. All right, if we look at example 3, in this case, we're given the factors. So if we're given the factors, that makes the rest of this quite easy. First off, to find the equation, well, to find the equation, I go, all right, x plus 5, x plus 7, or x minus 7, double distribute, x times x, x squared, x times negative 7 minus 7x, 5 times x plus 5x, 5 times negative 7 minus 35. Combine my like terms and I get x squared, negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2x minus 35. And I just want to make sure I remember to put my y on the front of that so that my equation is y equals x squared minus 2x minus 35. For my zeros, roots, solutions, well, I just want to take the opposite of what I see here. So if that's a plus 5, it becomes minus 5. And then if that's a minus 7, then it's positive 7. So that my roots are at negative 5 and positive 7. And then for my x-intercepts, I just make those into ordered pairs with 0. Example 4. Example 4, I gave you the x-intercepts. So to go from the x-intercepts to the rest of these is not too big of a deal. To find the zeros, roots, solutions, well, that's easy. Just take the x values, negative 3/4 and 2. To find the factors, all right, to find the factors, what we do is we say x equals negative 3/4 and x equals 2. And what I want to do is I want to get this side equal to 0 on both of them. So for this one, I'm going to start by multiplying by 4 so that I get 4x equals negative 3. Then I'm going to add 3. So I get 4x equals, or 4x plus 3 equals 0. So that 4x plus 3, that's going to be one of my factors. And on this one, I just need to subtract 2 so that now I have x minus 2 equals 0. So that's my other factor. So my factors end up being 4x plus 3 and x minus 2. To get my equation, I take 4x plus 3 and I multiply it by x minus 2. Distribute twice. 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 2 minus 8x. That's an 8. 3 times x plus 3x. 3 times negative 2 minus 6. Combine your like terms. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5, so minus 5x. This is minus 6. Make sure I put my y out in front of that. So my equation ends up being 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. So if we're given the x-intercepts, our first step should be our roots and solutions, then our factors, then our equation. So one last example. Here I'm given my zeros, roots, or solutions at -10, -3. So the easiest thing to find first is my x-intercepts. Okay, just put a 0 with each one of them. Now I want to find my factors. So I say x equals -10, x equals -3. So to work these out, add 10, x plus 10 equals 0. Over here, add 3. You get x plus 3 equals 0. So my factors are x plus 10 and x plus 3. To find my equation, take those two factors, x plus 10, x plus 3, and we're going to multiply them together. So x times x, x squared, x times 3 plus 3x, 10 times x plus 10x, 10 times 3 plus 30. All right, so if I combine my like terms, 3 plus 10 is 13, so 13x. Make sure I put my y out front. So my new equation is y equals x squared plus 13x plus 30. So if you get the zeros, roots, or solution first, then you can get the x-intercepts, the factors, and the equation. So hopefully after watching this video, you understand how these are related and how to go from one of these things to the others. So your try it problem is to take this equation and tell me the factors, x-intercepts, and the zeros.